A coworker stormed into my office and declared, "I deserve your promotion more than you. Hand over your title or I'll make your life miserable." When I laughed and refused, she sent a fake complaint to HR. Minutes later, our boss walked in with a folder and said, "Funny because I just got a complaint about you." This happened about a year ago, but it still feels like it just happened yesterday. I wasn't going to post it, but after seeing someone else go through something kinda similar, I figured maybe my story might help someone. So here it is. I work in IT for a mid-sized private hospital in Austin, Texas. I've been here for 7 years now. I'm not flashy. I don't network at lunch or kiss anyone's ass. I just do my job, keep my team moving, and mind my business. A few months before this all went down, our department had been dealing with some turnover. The senior management was trying to reorganize the structure and open up new positions. My boss, Dan, told me he was considering me for a promotion, Director of Systems Infrastructure. I didn't expect it. I wasn't even sure I wanted it, but I said if they thought I was ready, I'd take it seriously. Then in late September, they officially offered it to me. I said yes. The promotion was internal, no public posting. Just based on track record and performance. I wasn't handed anything, I earned it. Enter Becca. She had joined our company about 8 months before this. New hire from out of state. Super polished, always in heels, LinkedIn certified everything. Always talking about scaling systems and visibility metrics. But every time we actually needed help on a problem, she disappeared or handed it off. Her work was 70% talk, 30% delivery. I didn't dislike her, I just didn't trust her. She was nice to your face, but always one step away from throwing someone under the bus if it got her attention. After my promotion was announced internally, I noticed she got weird. Short responses in meetings. Side eyes. Talking over me. The usual passive-aggressive stuff. I brushed it off. Didn't think much of it. Then she walked into my office. Didn't knock. Just barged in, holding a folder, looking like she was ready for war. "I deserve your promotion more than you do." That was her opening line. I stared at her, thinking maybe I misheard her. "I'm sorry, what?" She walked up to my desk, dropped her resume in front of me like she was handing a subpoena. "I have more credentials. I've worked at 2 Fortune 500 companies. You got the job because you've been here too long. You're comfortable. I'm qualified. You need to do the right thing and let me have it." Let her have it. Like I was supposed to just hand over the title like it was a sandwich I didn't want anymore. I laughed. I thought she was joking. "I'm not stepping down, Becca. You want the job, talk to Dan. I'm not your problem." She didn't take that well. "Then I'm going to make your life miserable." Just like that. Cold. Flat. No smile. Just that. Then she turned and walked out. Less than 2 hours later, I got an email from HR. "Please come down to our office when you have a moment." Never a good sign. I went in. Sat down. They pulled out a file. It was a complaint. Against me. Claims that I was hostile in the workplace. That I verbally harassed her. That I mocked her appearance and qualifications in front of team members. That I intentionally left her off of meetings and isolated her from projects. I was stunned. The HR rep, Sam, didn't show much emotion. She told me they had to investigate it properly, that these things were taken seriously, and I was not to talk to Becca or anyone else about it during the process. I asked who filed it. She didn't answer. Said she wasn't at liberty to tell me right now. I knew who it was. Obviously. I went back to my office in a daze. Tried to keep my cool. Tried to act normal. Tried not to explode. About 10 minutes later, my boss Dan walks in. He's carrying a folder too. "I just got a complaint about you." I looked at him. "You think I did any of that?" He sat down. "No. But I'm going to get to the bottom of it anyway." Dan isn't the typical open door boss, but he's a fair guy. Doesn't play office games. Marine vet. Lives by facts and receipts. He started digging. Right away. What Becca didn't know is that Dan is a little paranoid. And old school. He watches badge logs, keeps server access records, and checks timestamps. He also has friends in security, and has access to internal video logs. He didn't say it, but I think he'd had his eye on her already. Within 2 days, Dan had pulled footage of Becca entering my office. Audio from our conversation. We're in an admin building that records all executive wing rooms for safety. Logs showing meeting invites and attendees from Outlook. Our Slack message history. The meeting she said I excluded her from? She wasn't even scheduled on it. It was about a different team entirely. The mocking comment? Never happened. No one on the team even recalled such a thing, and 2 people backed me up with full transparency. As for aggressive body language, I was literally sitting at my desk the whole time. Never raised my voice. She did. She stood. She leaned over my desk. She initiated. He even found Slack messages between her and another coworker, bragging that she was going to scare me into quitting. She used those exact words. If I can't get the role, I'll scare him out of it. She also said, he won't know what hit him. HR believes women over men every time. They'll cave. I didn't know what to feel. Rage. Betrayal. Shock. But Dan? He was calm. He set up a meeting. Official hearing. HR, Becca, Dan, and me. When we walked in, Becca had that smug look like she already won. Sat straight, hair perfect, folder in hand, waiting for the HR rep to back her up. Sam looked over the paperwork, nodded, and said she'd begin with Becca's statement. Becca repeated the whole fake story. Claimed I humiliated her in front of the team. That I was jealous of her. That I bullied her and made her fear coming into work. That I mocked her shoes. In a meeting, seriously? She even wiped at a fake tear. Then Dan spoke. He took out a USB. Plugged it into the screen. First, he played the audio from the day she came into my office. Word for word. Her threats. Her tone. Her language. You could feel the air change in the room. Then he put up the badge swipe logs. She hadn't even entered the building on one of the days she said I harassed her. Security footage confirmed it. He read the Slack messages. The threats. The bragging. Becca sat there, frozen. Then she tried to lie again. Said the messages were taken out of context. Dan didn't flinch. Just dropped printed screenshots, with timestamps, names, everything. Sam leaned back in her chair. Quiet. Then she said the words Becca didn't expect to hear. Filing a false complaint is a serious violation of company policy and legal guidelines. We'll be suspending you pending further review. Becca was suspended. That part felt good, not gonna lie. But it didn't feel done. It felt paused. Like a storm just waiting for round 2. And I was right. The next day, HR called me again. Sam looked tired, like she hadn't slept. We've been contacted by a lawyer. What? Becca's retained legal counsel. She's claiming retaliation, discrimination, and a hostile work environment. She's threatening to sue the hospital. My stomach dropped. You've got to be kidding me. She wasn't. Apparently, Becca's news story was this. She said I doctored the audio. That Dan coached me. That the whole thing was a male-led retaliation scheme. She claimed the security footage was edited. That I had powerful friends in leadership. And the company was covering for me. She also claimed we had a personal history. Said I made unwanted advances 6 months ago and held her career hostage. When she refused, my jaw literally dropped. That never happened. Not even close. I had barely talked to her outside work-related stuff. We never even had lunch together. She's making this up. I swear to God I never even. Sam held up a hand. I know. But now it's in writing. And we have to investigate all over again. Dan was furious. The kind of furious where he didn't yell, he just stopped blinking. This is getting ugly, he said. Lawyers? Fabricating a relationship? That's a whole new level of crazy. I asked if we were going to fight it. Dan just said, we'll do it right. No shortcuts. We'll bury her with the truth. They brought in external investigators. Not just HR anymore. A neutral third-party firm from Dallas that handled legal risk cases. Suddenly, everything was under a microscope. They interviewed me for 3 hours. Every Slack message. Every email. Every meeting we were both in. Every interaction. They pulled my old performance reviews. They asked about my dating life. I had to sit across from a stranger and say the words. No, I have never flirted with her. I've never touched her. I've never even stood too close. It was humiliating. They did the same to Dan. Dug into his career. Implied he might be biased because we play racquetball on weekends. We haven't in 2 years, but sure. Meanwhile, Becca went public on LinkedIn. She posted this cryptic status. Sometimes when a woman speaks up in tech, men make her disappear. I won't be silent anymore. It got over 800 likes. People were commenting stuff like stay strong and rooting for you. I wanted to scream. Then the worst part hit. A reporter reached out to the hospital. Someone had tipped off a small local news blog. They wanted to cover the story of a female IT specialist being silenced. Our PR team scrambled. Legal sent out a gag order to all staff. Suddenly, everything was locked down. No one could talk about it. No updates. Nothing. I sat in my office every day, people staring at me like I was radioactive. Becca was still suspended. But she wasn't quiet. Word started spreading that she was trying to rally other employees, asking them if they'd ever felt dismissed by leadership. 3 people backed her. They didn't say I did anything, but they said the workplace wasn't supportive and could be more inclusive. That was enough for her lawyer to push the narrative. Suddenly, I wasn't just defending myself, I was tied to some larger, toxic culture story. One guy from another department even messaged me privately. "Hey man, I don't think you did anything wrong, but just so you know, some people think you're going down for this. Might want to lawyer up." So I did. I found a defense attorney who specialized in employment law. Not cheap, but absolutely necessary. She read everything, looked at the file, then leaned back and said, "This is a scorched earth move. She's trying to break your rep, not just get your job." Why? Maybe she thought she deserved more. Maybe she's done this before. That night I searched her name. I went deep. Not just the LinkedIn polished version. I found an old blog post from her college's newspaper. It mentioned she'd accused a professor of discrimination. He'd taken a sabbatical a semester later. No details. Then a Reddit post from 3 years ago popped up under a throwaway account. I'm not saying 100% it was her, but the phrasing was identical. Talking about being undermined by insecure men. About documenting everything and playing the long game. I saved screenshots. I gave them to my lawyer. She said it wouldn't be admissible yet, but it helped paint a pattern. She started preparing a countersuit for defamation. Then came the twist that changed everything. A junior developer, someone Becca had mentored early on, came forward. She messaged Sam in HR and asked to speak off the record. They talked. Then Sam called me. "You're going to want to hear this." I showed up the next morning. The dev, let's call her Maria, was already there. Shaking. Nervous. "I didn't know it would go this far," she said. "Becca told me months ago she was going to take your job." "What?" "She said you were soft. Said she could make you look bad, and if that didn't work, she'd make it personal. She joked about HR being her back door. I thought she was bluffing. Then she told me she was filing a complaint." Maria said Becca asked her to back it up. To say she overheard things. To say she saw me act inappropriate. Maria refused. That's when Becca cut her off completely. Ghosted her. Made her life hell at work. She had texts. Voice memos. Screenshots. "Please," she said. "I don't want to get in trouble. I just want to do the right thing." I looked at Dan. He nodded once. "You just did." Maria's statement blew everything open. HR brought her in again, this time with legal present. She handed over everything, screenshots of Becca texting her, things like, "You're either with me or against me. I'm not going to let some second-rate tech guy block me again. If you tell HR anything else, I'll make sure you don't work in this city again." And then the kicker. "Don't worry, I already have people lined up to say they've seen him be off. All I need is momentum." That last line hit like a punch. The entire building changed after that. You could feel it. HR and legal switched tone. Dan looked like he could finally breathe again. I started getting nods from people who'd been avoiding me in the hallway. Becca didn't know Maria had flipped. But someone told her. We didn't know who the leak was. Even now, I don't know for sure. All I know is 2 days after Maria's second HR interview, Becca's lawyer emailed the company claiming witness coercion and retaliatory pressure. Her lawyer said Maria had been manipulated by senior leadership. We were all stunned. Maria was terrified. Becca then filed a restraining order request against me. Said I was stalking her digitally and weaponizing workplace surveillance. That I was retaliating for her whistleblowing. I hadn't texted, called, emailed, or even spoken her name out loud in public. But now I had to go to court. Stand in front of a judge. Hear her say I was emotionally dangerous and obsessed with power. It was surreal. But then my lawyer calmly handed the judge the USB drive. And we watched, again, the footage of her storming into my office. Her saying, "Give me your job or I'll make your life miserable." The judge paused. Then asked her, "Is that your voice?" Becca hesitated. That could have been edited. Was it your mouth moving in that exact rhythm? I don't recall. The judge dismissed the restraining order request on the spot. But now the hospital had a new problem, reputation damage. The local blog had already run 2 stories. HR was dealing with media pressure. Becca had started painting herself as some kind of martyr. Then came the anonymous letter. It was slid under Dan's door. 1 page. Printed. No return address. It said, "If you keep pushing this, I'll release everything. I've saved the emails, the chats, and the video. Don't test me. This won't end well for you either." Dan showed it to legal. They launched an internal review to see if someone was backing Becca up from the inside. Because now it wasn't just a she-said situation, it was feeling like something bigger. A game. And then we got a match. The hospital's cybersecurity vendor had installed new monitoring software a few months before this all started. Dan quietly asked them to backtrack login records and network logs. Guess what they found? Someone from inside the HR department had been accessing the server outside work hours. Pulling private email threads. Accessing security footage. Printing internal memos. They traced the login to a part-time contractor named David, who was supposed to be working in document scanning. Low level. Quiet. Nobody paid attention to him. Turns out, he was Becca's ex. And he still had admin-level access he was not supposed to have. They pulled his badge data. He'd been entering the server room after hours. Alone. Quiet. Always on days when something weird happened, leaks, anonymous, blog tips, or printed notes showing up. They pulled him in. He cracked in 45 minutes. He admitted Becca told him I had harassed her, and that I was trying to ruin her career for rejecting me. She told him she was trapped, that she needed insurance, that she just needed help to level the playing field. He said he didn't know what was real anymore. That he thought he was helping a friend. That it got out of control fast. She had manipulated him too. When the hospital's legal team found out, they froze everything. Dan was told to step back. A third-party law firm came in. Becca was officially terminated for cause. So was David. But then the twist I didn't see coming, she filed a wrongful termination lawsuit. She said the company fired her for being a whistleblower. Said she had been punished for reporting abuse. Said David was acting on his own. And she had no knowledge of what he was doing. Even though we had texts, video, audio, logs. Even though she literally said on camera, "I'll make your life miserable." Her lawyer filed anyway. We all got subpoenaed. Dan. Me. Sam. Maria. Becca was going all in. This wasn't about a job anymore. It was about revenge. That's when the CEO stepped in. I'd never met him before. Only seen him in quarterly update videos. But now he was in the building. Holding meetings behind closed doors. Shaking hands with lawyers. Then one afternoon, he walked right into my office. "I'm sorry this happened," he said. "We're going to handle it." I nodded. Then he added, "But there's something else you should know. We just found out she's been in contact with someone from another hospital we partner with. Trying to get access to old system data." "What kind of data?" "Internal performance review software. From before she was hired. She's trying to find dirt. On you. On Dan. Even on Sam." That's when I realized she wasn't trying to win a lawsuit. She was trying to ruin reputations. Burn the place down on her way out. And that's where we are now. The lawsuit is still active. I'm still working, but under pressure. Maria's transfer request was approved. She's moving to a different team in another department. Dan's under stress. Looks 10 years older. Becca? She's out there. Still posting vague quotes on social media. Still acting like she's fighting the good fight. Still trying to hurt people. I've got my lawyer. Got my files. Got my receipts. The lawsuit kept dragging. Weeks passed. My lawyer warned me it could take a year, maybe longer. I was still doing my job, but every day I came in, I felt like I was walking across glass. Some people were supportive. Others were weirdly silent. And a few just wanted to stay out of it entirely. HR sent out new cultural sensitivity surveys. We had training sessions that felt like thinly veiled apologies from corporate. Dan kept his head down, but I could tell this whole thing was weighing on him. His name was being dragged through the mud too. And then something broke. The hospital was hosting a staff town hall, one of those once a quarter. We value your input. Meetings. Usually nobody cares. But this time? The air was thick. You could feel it. Half the staff knew something was going on. The other half only knew the rumors. The CEO opened with boring numbers. Then started talking about recent internal conflicts. Then, to everyone's surprise, Becca walked into the room. Yeah. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was banned from the building. But she came in anyway, heels clicking, holding a file. Her lawyer by her side. Security started moving, but the CEO signaled to let her speak. Let her say what she came to say, he said. Everyone deserves to hear it. Becca stepped up to the mic and took a breath. She started talking. Slowly. At first, it sounded like another speech. She claimed she had been silenced, that she'd tried to protect others, that she'd been painted as a liar by a leadership team afraid of change. Some people clapped. Not many. Then she said, I still have the truth. And I have evidence that people here, people in this room, have covered up unethical behavior. That's when Maria stood up. Voice shaking, but loud enough. No, you don't. You lied. Becca froze. Maria stepped into the aisle, eyes wet, but her back straight. You said I was your friend. You begged me to help you, and when I didn't, you tried to destroy me too. You wanted a promotion so badly you made up an entire story. You used people. You scared people. You tried to ruin lives. Silence. Becca looked around, waiting for someone to step in. No one did. She tried to speak, but her lawyer tugged her arm. Maria kept going. You told me all of this was a game. That the truth didn't matter, just how loud you were. And when people didn't play along, you threatened them. Dan stood up next. His voice was quieter, but firmer. You used my name to build your lie. You knew you couldn't beat me or him, so you tried to destroy both of us. You said things that were unforgivable. But here's the thing, you didn't break us. You exposed yourself. Becca tried to answer, but her voice cracked. Then she shouted. I was trying to fix a broken system. Someone from the back, an older admin, called out. By breaking people? And just like that, the room turned. Dozens of eyes on her. No more sympathy. Just cold silence. She burst into tears. But it wasn't grief, it was frustration. The kind of crying you do when your plan falls apart in front of everyone. She dropped her folder, papers scattering, and ran out. Security didn't stop her this time. No one needed to. The CEO stepped back up. He looked older than he had 30 minutes before. He picked up the mic. This is not how we build trust, he said. This is how we lose it. And we have a long way to go. Then he left too. In the aftermath, everything felt heavy. Maria asked for extended leave. She deserved it. Dan took a week off. I stayed, but barely spoke to anyone for days. People came by my office with quiet nods. Some apologized for doubting me. Others didn't say anything, but their silence was loud enough. I felt anger. A strange grief. Like something important had cracked and I wasn't sure if it could be put back together. HR closed the case. My name was cleared. But that didn't fix what was broken inside. The trust? The ease? That invisible shield I used to have walking through the office? Gone. One afternoon, I found myself staring at my reflection in the glass of the server room. Same guy. But different eyes. Later that week, Sam from HR stopped by my office. You okay? She asked. I shrugged. I should be. You didn't deserve any of that. Maybe. But it still happened. She nodded. It always leaves a mark. I don't know what happened to Becca after that. Her LinkedIn disappeared. The lawsuit got dropped. Probably settled out quietly. The blog that ran her side of the story? Took it down without comment. Maria and I still talk sometimes. She said she's thinking about leaving tech. Said she's tired of fighting battles that shouldn't exist. Dan stayed on. We don't talk about the case much. But we shake hands longer now. There's respect that wasn't spoken before. That matters. As for me? I still go to work. Still run my team. Still fix the things that break. But now I trust slower. Watch more. Speak less. I learned that some people will burn the whole house down if they can't sit at the head of the table. And I learned that truth doesn't always win fast, but when it lands hard. I'm not the same person who got that promotion. I'm sharper now. Not bitter. Not broken. But wide awake.